Big crowd. Oh, I'm so sorry. The dude at the front, it just fell out of his chair. Am I too loud for you?
Checking on this microphone.
Where did Taylor go? We're getting the thumbs up. We're live.
Excellent.
Welcome back. Guitar Summit 2024, live in the lounge. Are we in the Guitar Summit woodshed?
It's now the adopted shed. It's more of an excursion. Wood excursion, if you will. How's everybody doing? It's good to see everybody. Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Whether you're joining us in the crowd here or you're tuning in on Andertons' YouTube channel, it's lovely to see you on this Saturday afternoon from Mannheim. I'm excited. I have followed Andy on socials and YouTube and stuff for years. And despite exchanging pleasantries, as many YouTubers do, you say nice things to each other on videos. We never actually met.
I thought you were going to say we never actually mean it.
Yeah.
We don't actually mean it.
The insight into the real world of YouTube.
The dark, seedy underbelly of the internet.
So I'm super excited. I love your playing, man. You're an incredible guitar player. And I'm loving the fact that I get half an hour to get to know you a little bit more.
Oh, man.
So thank you for joining, and thank you guys for coming in. Look, take us back. Take us back to what drew you to the guitar in the first place, and some of your early inspirations.
Yes, so I grew up in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina, in that area in the States, in the Appalachian Mountain Trail. And my grandfather played bluegrass music. My family didn't have tons of money or anything like that. He just had a full-size fiddle. He had a mandolin, a cheap Alvarez mandolin, and a little acoustic. And my cousin and I were the only children of our generation. His daughters, our mothers, each had one son, and that was just kind of it. So at Christmas time and holidays, and we would get together, and he started us playing bluegrass music and Appalachian music and fiddle tunes and that kind of music. And, of course, being a fiddle player, that led to country music and Ray Price records and Merle Haggard records and Waylon Jennings and all that kind of stuff. And I kept playing music. I didn't start playing electric guitar until I was about 17.
Wow.
Yeah, I came to the electric guitar kind of late. I started playing mandolin when I was like 5 or 6.
Okay.
And played enough rhythm acoustic guitar to where I could back up my cousin when he played fiddle. He played enough acoustic guitar to back me up when I played mandolin, that kind of thing. And I bought records based on my favorite musicians, as we all do, but those musicians were guys like Bela Fleck and Jerry Douglas and Tony Rice and Sam Bush and these like bluegrass elite kind of players. So fast forward to I was about 17, and I had got the Mark O'Connor New Nashville Cats record, and track 4 is a track called Pick It Apart, and there was a guitar solo on that, electric guitar solo by Brent Mason.
Oh.
And that hit me like an atomic bomb. I was like, because I'd bought the record for Bela and Jerry, and then I heard that Telly solo, and I was like, holy crap, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard, And I was at that moment in time playing in a theater in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is like a lot of live shows, Dollywood and all that kind of stuff. And the electric guitar player, I would noodle around, and he would see my right hand technique, which was basically just mandolin technique, and he would be like, oh, you must love Steve Morse and Paul Gilbert and Eric Johnson. I was like, I have no clue who these guys are. So every other week or so, he would bring me mixtapes and mix CDs, and it was the things that I should have heard. We're talking like Passion and Warfare, or like Avia Musicom, or High Tension Wires. And so getting into Steve Morse, he was very much my gateway drug into distortion and heavy music, because from there it's a straight line down to Petrucci and all the Muso stuff. But because Steve played so much jazz influence too, that was my gateway to Chick Corea and that kind of thing. So that's really my story of how I got here.
I'm always fascinated how early, particularly players that either come from a classical background or, like yourself, the mandolin background, how much of that technique spills over into what has formed you as an electric player. Sure. So is it very much a sort of a very clean right-hand technique?
Sure, yeah. On acoustic instruments, who in here has tried to play a Martin acoustic with 13s on it? Like just a big, nobody plays heavy gauge strings. One guy's done it. It requires a certain amount of input to get the projection out. Like if you go over there to the Bourgeois booth and you try any of the guitars, they have heavy strings, right? It's just the nature of it. So that in turn does two things. It makes legato not a thing.
Right.
So I didn't understand legato. Here's a really funny story. Like the first time I saw Steve Vai lick his finger, hold it in the air, and do this with the left hand, I was like, that's witchcraft. That can't be done. You know, and then I understood what compression and gain and distortion meant. But yeah, if you'll hold the microphone, I kind of...
Sure.
Yeah. Let's see here. Like these kind of old tunes... all of these kind of like old fiddle tunes and reels, right? All of these old kind of jigs and reels. That's really like the gateway and the way that
I was going to ask you, so how did you develop the hybrid? Because if you've come at it very much from a flat picking kind of style.
That entry tune that I was playing has like this technique called cross picking. Cross picking is just it's just alternate picking, but you're doing it through multiple string sets. Let me address that with no delay so you can actually hear it. Yeah. And then the tune has the... And there's these kind of patterns throughout that style of music. So like the hybrid playing came from being a big fan of Brent Mason, like I mentioned. Now Brent plays with a thumb pick and two acrylic nails on his middle and his third. So when he sounds like he's alternate picking, he's actually playing thumb, middle, thumb, ring, thumb, middle, thumb, ring. And the first finger doesn't have a nail on it, and that's where the pops come from. So I attempted this for maybe 6 hours, and I was like, I can't, this is not in the cards. So I was starting to assimilate the Brent stuff by figuring out ways to cross-pick the alternate pick lines and use the middle fingers to nail it. So, like, for example, it would be like a... Like learning a hot wired, you know, there's the B section to hot wired has this kind of, this pattern. Let me do that clean. I can't sit right. Here we go. And I was trying to, you know, emulate the sounds that I heard with what I could do and mix it together. And so that's kind of the forming the basis points for what I do.
I don't know if it's that you guys will have to back me up, but I don't know if it's the same in Germany. But if you're from the UK and you learn to play the guitar, particularly from my generation, you just grow up assuming that the Steve Vais and the Satrianis, they're like technically the really great players. And I do remember the first guy I ever saw that just where I went, whoa, there's another level, was where I saw Albert Lee.
Oh, of course.
And you realize that actually if you're from the States, the guys with the technique are the country players, right?
Right.
Because it's like, it's nuts. And I'm watching, I wish I had a camera up here to show you Andy's right hand. It's ridiculous.
So what's the famous Albert Lee is Country Boy? There's a really great cross-picking section in that. Let's see if I can remember it.
You're going to do a bit of...
I think of it.
Dear old...
So that's the section that I remember that is that thing. And if I slow that down, you'll see what I mean with the cross-picking. So... So a bit out of tune from the travel, but let me see if I can tune it.
I feel like I'm just gonna be selfishly just getting a guitar lesson up here from you.
Yes.
But just explain to me again, what's the difference between alternate picking and cross picking?
Well, there's really not. The cross terminology is something that comes about by being on the inside set. If you'll hold the microphone.
Yeah.
If you have a string set like this,
Yeah.
you'll play down, up. So that's a normal transition.
Yeah.
You go down, up, down, and now I have to cross over the middle string. So down,
So it's
up,
about
down,
skipping
up,
strings
down,
out
up.
then.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And so I being a big Bela Fleck fan and hearing some more exotic harmony stuff, I started implementing how I could put that into larger, wider sounds. So like if we have, maybe like I'll put this into triplets, maybe like a. So that's a bit like if you struggle with the B section to too many notes. Typically when I'm sitting down, I can alternate pick it and do it. But when I'm standing up and the guitar gets lower, I figured out a way to go down, up, down, middle, right? Then down, up, down, right? So it's like a, right, we've heard that. I missed the last one. There we go, yeah. But that kind of thing is how I've got the wider sounds too, right? Those kind of sounds. Yeah, so. So taking that, country kind of idea and the wider sounds of a banjo, because banjo can get a lot of width because the string closest to you is not the lowest, it's the highest. So those really wide jumps that if you were playing on guitar, they would look like, those kind of things are nice and compact on a banjo. So it's just kind of taking all of this stuff and the assimilation of all the kind of music that I like and trying to blend it together to make something that's mine.
This is going to be, I've realized now, I'm looking at my watch going, there's no way that I'm going to fit all the questions in that I've got for you
Yeah.
in the next 15 minutes.
I'll try to go, we'll go rapid fire.
Will you come to Andertons when you're in the UK next time, and then we can spend as long as we like?
Dude, that would be amazing.
Okay.
I would be honored.
In the interest of only having another 15 minutes of
Yeah.
this particular thing, let's talk about gear. We're all here at Guitar Summit because we're all massive gear nerds, I'm guessing.
Sure.
You've obviously been a Shure T-style player for a long time.
Yeah.
I guess it's probably pretty obvious why a guitar player like you would gravitate towards a Telecaster style guitar.
Yeah, it's a bit funny because this was my design. This models, the Modern T, was something that I came up with for John. I actually kept asking John for years. It's 2 years before he finally made one, which is the black one you've seen me play with the brushed metal. I love the heel joint on the Modern, and playing tellies. The heel joints are always right there in your way. Yep. So even though this has got 24 frets, it's less about high E and it's more about like when I'm holding, G or F sharp right here, my hand's not touching the body of the guitar. So I wanted something that from 25 or 30 feet, it looked like a working man's Telecaster, but when you're on it, it's got a bit more of the super player kind of perfect intonation, fretwork and stuff.
Is it sacrilege to put a trem system on a Telecaster?
I mean, I don't know. You tell me. They were doing it in the 70s with Bigsby's and stuff, so it's just not a Bigsby.
Are you using the trem for tricks or are you using it for tremolo?
I use it for all kinds of things, like, I use it for all that kind of stuff and a bit of the faux slide thing too.
What's the trem system on there?
This is a Godo 510.
Okay, so it's a pretty, I do like that trem system, but it's a pretty regular trem system.
Yeah, John's worked up his own new two-post style that he's using that I just haven't got one of the new guitars. I think it's only been in the systems now for a couple of months. But this is, it's a lot like the Godo. I mean,
it's exactly what you say. It looks like a working man's kind of guitar.
Right, and we offer 2 versions. We offer a hardtail that has single coils for if you really want to go super authentic redneck country. It'll do it really authentically. This is my one guitar do all kind of thing, and this is the environment where I have to bring one guitar and set up through whatever and just make it work. So
let's go down the guitar cable and talk about the next few things.
And again, I'm an amp guy, unapologetically an amp guy. So my tone is not being fairly represented through your Bluetooth headphones. But if you got to come to the show last night, that's a bit more of like what I typically sound like, which is an amp. And I'm one of my favorite pedals is a pedal I designed with Kevin Sir, which is the Woodshed compressor. And compressors are often the most misconstrued part of a signal chain, right? Because it's either like super clamped and fake sounding, or it's pointless, or it chops off the high end. So we wanted to work on something that could provide that sustain and almost like you've just mixed the record. Yeah. And instead of just telling you a bunch of words, I'd rather show you, don't tell you. I consider it, like when an Asian restaurant has MSG and they put it on everything and it just makes it better. This is MSG for your tone. So, now with it, and I usually run it with a couple of dB of boost, but that's not really translating to a non-amp scenario. And then without it, a bit of it just sounds mixed, everything's just more forward.
Pete uses Danish Pete in our videos uses a Cali 76 compressor. And I think the beauty of that is you don't realize what it's doing until he turns it off.
Yeah.
It's one of the few effects compressors in general. It's a really good compressor. You shouldn't obviously know it's on, but then when you turn it off, you go, oh, it doesn't sound as good anymore.
Right, yeah. Selfishly, being a Tennessee guy, I have every compressor that's ever been made. Barber Tone, like you name it, I've got it. Carl Martin, whatever. Cali 76 as well. And my goal was if we can't beat it, then it's not going to win. And this is my favorite one in the blind taste test. One of the things that's really important for me is a compressor that sounds like it's running at 18 volts.
Okay.
And what we use is a charge pump, so it can be a small housing, but the compression is reacting as if the pedal was running at 18 volts.
And then
the Wampler Bell, this is just kind of do-all crunch kind of thing.
Brian's take on a Noble?
It's a Nobles. Yeah, it's like a OD.
It's a real.
Yeah.
I can imagine that. So.
It just does that. And then the gearbox is my main source of like overdrive. I run a clean situation. So, this is no compressor. And then with the gearbox, turn that down just a little bit. Yeah. Very just thick overdrive.
That's great.
And then it's got another side if you, for whatever reason, you need more gain than that, which nobody does. It does that thing really well. So, and then off to the left is something I'm not allowed to talk about, other than I can say it's from Fractal. And it's new.
Is this the new thing?
It's new, and it has tape over what it's called.
Oh, I did.
So I had a nice long video chat with Matt from Fractal last week, and we built some presets. So when this comes out, hopefully later this month, you'll have my delay settings and chorus and all that kind of stuff. I can't tell you. All I can say is it's just there it is, and I'm an amp guy, so figure it out. That's all I'm allowed to say. But it's really great, and I really was super happy with the tones last night, which was the real first trial by fire. Okay. You don't know how anything sounds until you put it with a kick drum and an 810 bass rig.
And then amp-wise, are you going crystal clean and all the drive from here? Or
exactly.
Break up
So it just, I would say a pushed sound. Yeah. There's no, this Friedman thing is providing more distortion than I actually use. It's a bit of the layering thing that I've lifted from my heroes, and the smoothest vocal-like overdrives tend to come from layering levels of gain versus like everything all at once. But of course, if I'm doing a session and I need full throttle flamethrower, it's like, give me the Diesel Herbert, crank it on, and let it eat.
So, give me like a week in the life of a player like you, because I think you've got so many strings to your bow, whether it's playing your own stuff, looking at tuition stuff, sessions for other people. Right. Do you think that's the only way now for a sort of a professional guitar player to make a living out of this, is like lots of strings to the same?
I can't really subscribe to what is the way, because in the music industry, there's 1,000 ways to do it. But for me, the thing that I like is to be a hybrid artist. And this, I just released a new record called Charisma, and it's doing really well. And my solo stuff is far outweighing the hired gun thing. So next year might be the first year in like 14 years that I'm not going to be able to be a sideman very much longer, great, right? Which is great. It's really great. However, when I work with Gary or the Rascal Flatts guys, you got to understand, we're going out there for 90 minutes and we can't play all 28 number ones. So that is really rewarding, to go out there and kick off Life as a Highway for thousands of people. So it's not like I'm looking forward to not being able to do that. However, in the digital age, you know, my Patreon is done really well, and if anybody's interested in tuition and that kind of thing, check out my Patreon. It's my main communal hub. And then, of course, the social media thing does what it does, but I think for me the most important thing is not getting lost in vanity metrics and still making something that is worth something if I die tomorrow. And that's the whole point of making a record. So, you know, in today's world, like losing that is kind of really detrimental to me personally. And I look at making a record, it's like, hey man, I want to spend 30 or 40 grand and it's just going to be gone. It's an instant loss, but it's not, because that's why I'm sitting here, is because of songs like Junktown and, you know, Free Range Chicken and stuff like that. It's like that's a statement and a testament that lives longer than scrolling and seeing somebody that's really great at guitar and then scrolling and not remembering what they played 4 hours later, right? Like, everybody's great at guitar these days. So the only thing that really stands the test of time is the music and the songs. I mean, there's a reason people still learn Cliffs of Dover and Surfing with the Alien, and it's songs. So it's like, that's my main focus, and let everything orbit around that. Woodshed Guitar Experience is this weekend rock star retreat that we do that still just orbits around songs. Like, we had Steve Morse there. Why is Steve Morse relevant? Because mother effing Stress Fest and High Tension Wires. He's like, of course he's a great guitar player, but that's just being great as a vehicle to write and create. So that to me is the most important thing. It's easy to get caught up in clicks and likes and metrics, but that just goes away just like any other gig. Yeah. Like, you can be the flavor of the month and then the algorithm doesn't love you in the next month. And it's like, what point is that? But if you make a great song, like Andy Timmons makes Resolution, he will now be impervious to the algorithm.
I think that's the lasting legacy, isn't it?
That's it.
Amazing guitar players will come and go and techniques will shift, but the longevity is the song.
It's the songs,
always
man.
the song.
It's always the song. So that was the whole mission statement with the album Charisma. Another really psychotic thing I did with that record was I made it a point. It was, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but it was a really tough couple of years. I lost my granddad and my dad in like 13 months. So I just, instead of being an adult and getting a therapist, I just made a record and put all of it into the record. And so one of the things that I didn't want to do was use any software plugins. So I did everything the hard way. So like on a song like Cherry Blossoms, there's 102 stems of strings. And it's a guy named Jimmy T, who mixes and works with Dream Theater. He mixed my record. Petrucci was a bit of a mentor and kind of helped me on the record. And he said, you know, you should get Jimmy T to mix it. Well, Jimmy rolls up the faders on that song. He's like, man, these strings sound great. What'd you use? And I just put in the text back, strings, smiley face. He's like, really? And it's like, yeah. So when you roll up real violas and it's actually real violas, it's special. It's really difficult to do a record that way. And I may not do another one that way. That may just be a one and done, but it was valuable for me to have. If you hear a Kodo on the album, that's actually the guy that makes the music for Elden Ring playing Kodo on the record. So everything down across the spectrum of the album, if you hear it, it's a real instrument that we recorded with what they call a microphone.
I must admit, you're obviously at the top of your game, at the pinnacle of guitar players on the planet. But to hear you, I think it's very relatable for everyone here to go, if something traumatic has happened in your life and you need a way of dealing with it, and there's lots of men in the audience here, and I'm sure we're all the same, and the idea of seeing a therapist probably is pretty, like, not very...
We're going to bottle it up, put it in a box, and never acknowledge it.
I tell you, this weird wooden thing with 6 strings on it, and that's my therapist.
It's mine too, and it helped me get through it. And that tune that I was talking about, Cherry Blossoms, was specifically written for my dad and my granddad. Yeah. So if you get a chance to spin that, now you have a little insight to the tune. And then, of course, Bonamassa was kind enough to throw a heater guest solo on the record. Brent Mason did a guest solo. And these guys are so brilliant, and they didn't charge me anything. They were just like, we're just happy. Like Brent said, man, I'm just happy you called. Joe said, man, I'd be honored. It's just like, wow,
You pinch yourself sometimes.
It's really weird because I'm still such a fan, and I'm standing next to my heroes. It's like I'm trading solos with my heroes, and you get these calls that are unreal. And here's a great one that happened recently. I never had a chance to meet Steve Morse until about 3 months ago. The Dixie Dregs were playing in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm friends with John and Jordan from Dream Theater. And I text Jordan. Jordan was going to be playing the keyboards on the gig. I said, hey, man, I don't need a backstage pass. I don't need anything. I've got my tickets. I'm so excited to see the Dregs and see Steve live for the first time in my life. Like, I'm 40 years old, and I've never got to see him live. And Jordan goes, wow, that's awesome. About 15 minutes later, I get a call, and it's like, hey, is this Andy? I'm like, yeah. He's like, this is so-and-so. I'm stage manager for Steve Morse Band on the Dregs. The boys want you to sit in. Did you bring a guitar tonight? And I said, of course I didn't bring a guitar. I'm coming to a concert. Nobody brings it. He's like, oh, it's cool. You can play one of Steve's guitars. So as I'm approaching the stage, sold-out room, and, Steve hands me the guitar, and Steve, we're about to trade solos, and his amps are here, and Steve's here, and, it's the Dregs, and Jordan's over there, and it's like, and my hat is on, as it always is, and through the top of my hat, I see his hands on that blue guitar. And it's just like, wow, this is not what I expected to see a perspective from the first time seeing Steve Morse live, And it was really surreal, like a year ago when Guitar World magazine has their interviews with the legendary players, and the legendary players choose their favorite records and their favorite solos of the year. It got to Steve Morse, and my friends were like, hey, man, how does it feel to be Steve's favorite player? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they took a screenshot, and it was like Steve Morse, favorite solo, favorite record, guitarist of the year, Andy Wood. And I was just like, I immediately went out and got the magazine and printed it and put it on my wall in my studio. And just, it's like Steve was such an important figure to me, having that kind of approval. All I did was say, hey, man, I just need to owe you royalties on all the licks that I've stolen over the years.
Well, I could do this all day, but sadly, Guitar Summit can't.
Yeah.
So I've loved this. I would love to carry on
Let's
the conversation at Andertons. You're playing tonight, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to jam with Greg Koch tonight. We had a good time with Phil X and the boys last night. We're going to do it again tonight.
So, well, I hope I'm going to catch a little bit of that. Please, everyone give a massive round of applause to Andy.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Do you want to just play us a little bit? Play us maybe a bit of charisma or something, whatever.